Hi there, welcome to Muse to Go. My name is Karrie and I'm going to be your instructor today. Now, normally at Muse we are all about painting, but today we're actually going to take a little break and we're going to be working on book sculptures using folding techniques. So really excited to help you guys jump into the sculpture world, just a little taste of it, and give you guys some tips and tricks that we can make 2 different beautiful book sculptures for today. Now we're going to be working on a triangle fold and we're also going to be working on a triple fold, so buckle up. We're in for a little bit of a treat. What you're going to want to do is make sure that you have 2 books selected for this project before we begin. That's all you're going to need for today is just 2 books. Now, it's really important when you're choosing your book that you have a hardcover book in mind. As you can see, my final product is going to be displayed up on the wall, so I really want that hardcover book to be able to make that nice and easy to do. Otherwise, the jacket of your book is actually going to be really, really important. The actual hardcover color is something that's really important in the final design. You can see I have this really cool macaroni and cheese orange color behind this canvas book. And then here I just have a plain black and white design, which is just as good. Some hardcover books you might find have 2 tones, so just kind of keep an eye out for that for when you do kind of your jacket unveiling. This is an example of one of those 2-tone cover books. This book would work perfectly fine for our project for today, but just to keep in mind your aesthetic for what you want that end product of your book to be, you want to keep in mind kind of the color, the size, and the shape and everything that you're using. Usually around 200 to 300 pages will be really, really good for this type of a project that we're going to be doing for today. And we want to make sure that the actual pages themselves have a glued in binding, not a sewed binding. So you can see here, I have a really nice glued in binding. There's no ridges. All of the pages look like they're just one unit. And I want to make sure that my pages are not too thick and are not too thin. You want to think about the consistency of a really crisp $1 bill. That's really what we're looking for the project for today. Other tools that might be helpful for you, we can use the back of a spoon to help fold and crease the pages as we go, as well as maybe the back of a pair of scissors. Otherwise, you're not going to need any glue, you're not going to need any paint, you're not going to need anything else today besides your 2 books. So once we have that selected, we're ready to get started. All right, so now that you have your book, it's time to get started. The first technique that we're going to use for today is going to be called a triangle fold. It's very much what it sounds like. We're going to be using folding techniques to get triangular pieces of paper, and we're going to work from the middle of our book to the outside. So the first thing that we're going to do once you get that selected is flip right to the back, and you're going to find the last page number. Spoiler alert, don't read the end. So for this, it's 222 pages total, give or take a couple on either side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to page 111, and that should give me approximately half of the book on either side. You can just kind of give it a good eye reference and see that basically what we have right now is we have half the pages on one side and half on the other. Now, I like to stretch out my book to get started and just, not too tough, but really get that glue if it feels stiff. Doing a quick stretch, kind of pulling from either side of your book is a great way to start. And then I'm going to flip to the left-hand side and we're going to start by doing our first fold. So what I'm going to do is it's really important that we're really trying to create a uniform shape the entire time. And what we're thinking about right now is how the book is going to be displayed as a final product. So that's going to impact how we're folding all of the papers right now. So the reason why we divide it in half is so that all of my folds are going to end up on the inside of the paper. So every time we start on the left-hand side, the first thing that I do is I'll flip up my page and then I'll make my fold. I'm also always going to start my fold from the very bottom of the book. That way, again, when we display our final product, not only will the pages fan out in a way where you don't see any of your seams, but you also have a really crisp top edge, which will be perfect for our finished product. So let's take that first page, and what we're going to do is we're going to be really mindful for the edge of the book and you want to be very careful with this edge not to pull too quickly. I'm going to wrap this page around so that I have a really clean line up on the bottom. And then I'm going to push my fingers towards this outer edge and even run my fingernails across the very bottom part, or that very crisp edge that I've created for the book. And that'll be my first fold. My second fold for this triangle fold, I'm going to go all the way down, again being very careful of this little edge not to rip. I'm going to line it up so I have that really clean edge, and then I'm gently going to walk my fingers up to create that first fold. And then I'll use my fingernails. If you don't have fingernails, you could use the back of a pair of scissors, or if you have any tools that are flat that you'd like to use, like a spoon, that would work too. And you can see we have our first triangle page and everything's tucked together. Now I'm going to continue that process with the next page. I'm going to flip it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be very careful again of that little edge. I want to get it closest that I can to the spine of the book. Walk your fingers up. Kind of create that first gentle fold. And then I'm going to go through and just really with my fingernail, or again the back of a spoon or a pair of scissors, like really just create that nice crisp edge. And we'll do the same to the top side. You line it up with the bottom. You walk your fingers towards the edge. And then we're going to create that crisp fold by using, again, either one of your tools found in your kitchen or with your fingernails. Now I'm going to go through and do about 10 to 15 pages just like this. It'll depend on the thickness of your paper. And then I'm going to flip my book and we'll repeat this step on the other side. So what you can start to see happening is we have this really cool triangle shape starting to pop up on our book. And this is going to be such a beautiful design once we filled up all of our pages. Mine are a little funky because I have my little pops of color here and there. But you can see that when we have the whole design completed, you're really not going to be able to see those seams. You're just going to see your beautiful book shape. Now, it's really important as you're working to try and keep as uniform of a shape as possible. As you can see here, it really looks like I just have my one triangle, and it's really important that you keep your edges nice and crisp, and you also try and keep them all the same shape and the same size as we move throughout the book. My pages are a little bit more thick than the standard book, and so what I'm finding is really helpful as I go is just to continue to stretch out that binding and loosening up that glue on the book. That way, whenever I go in to make a new fold and I bring my paper up, it's already nice and loose. I don't have to be as worried about tearing or as sensitive to that edge. I can just line up my bottom of my page that I'm folding with the spine of the book. I walk my fingers up to create that soft edge, and then I use my fingernails, or again, one of the tools from your kitchen, to create that final shape. I'm going to finish up this last one, and then what we're going to do is we're going to flip our book around and we're going to start in on the other side. Walk my fingers up to the top and down. That's a perfect one to stop on. I love it. All right, so let's flip the book around. Now that you've started to fill up one of the sides, it's nice to get the other side going so that you can work in the same thickness. Again, balance is a big part of book sculpting and kind of these book folding techniques. So it helps to go through, and then you can really decide if you want to do all of your pages when you're folding, if you only want to go to a certain length until you feel like it's full. All of the books are going to have different page thicknesses, so it's great to kind of choose your own adventure during that part. But I'm going to go through, and similar technique as before, I'm going to bring my page up, and in fact, I'm just going to loosen up my binding on this side by just stretching out my book. I'm going to bring my page up, And this time we're going to do it in the reverse. Remember, we always want to fold from the bottom of our book first so that all of those pages, all of those folds are nice and tucked away during our finished product. So we're being mindful of this little edge right here and being sensitive so that it does not rip. I'm getting close to the middle of that binding, just like we did before. And I'll make that soft fold and then a more crisp fold afterwards. All right, now I'm going to go through and continue to do about 10 or 11 on this side, and then we'll see where we're at with thickness. All right, once you get to this stage of the game, there's usually one of two things that are happening. You're either finding this extremely meditative or your inner perfectionist is starting to come out. Now, while I encourage you to lean towards the meditative part, what I do want to let you know is that even though we're folding paper and we're talking about it being uniform and really trying to make sure that your finished product is really crisp and like perfect on the outside, it doesn't mean that you don't get any do-overs. For instance, right here you can see on my last fold, I have a double crease here. I accidentally pressed a little too soon, and so I had a little bit of an unevenness when my finished product came together with that last fold. So all I did was I popped out my shape one more time of my page. I smoothed it out, and then I stuck my finger underneath. And what that does is it lets me kind of not follow the crease that I've already made, but kind of create a new roll and a new crease. I can tap my finger along the edge, and then I can go back through with that new fold and really, really crisp up that outer edge so that it does look uniform with the rest of my folds that I've done so far. And you can see finished product wise, you're not going to notice that little double fold. You will know that it's there, but you will never have anybody notice it with your final product. So if you feel yourself getting stressed, take a little stretch break, come back, and just kind of lean into your meditative side and know that same thing with painting. Even though we're folding and it's paper, you can still fix and kind of adjust anything as you go if you need to. Now I'm going to keep on the folding train and keep going. I'm going to do a couple more on this side, and then I'm going to start to fill up my left side again. Whenever you switch sides, it's just really important to remember that you are always going to start your fold from the very bottom of the book. That way you get these nice crisp edges and your folds look beautiful. So then when they fan out with your finished product, you can see already we get this beautiful little, almost like a diamond shape, but you don't see any of your folds. You don't see any of your mistake creases. Everything kind of stays tucked away onto the side it's supposed to. All right, so you can see after a lot of pages, I almost don't even need to fill up using every single page of this book because my pages are a little bit thicker. And what's awesome is you can see that just by it laying flat, we already have our nice little diamond shape that's happening. It's fanning out really beautiful, and it's ready to hang up on a wall. So feel free to go to however many pages you feel like you need to make this look nice and full. Certainly the more pages you do, the more condensed it will be, but that's just kind of a quick preview of what your finished product could look like. I'm going to show you guys another way that you can fold your book or second sculpture. So I have my second book right here. We're going to start this the same way as we started the first book. So going ahead and flip right to the back. So I'm going to find the last page number. What we're looking for is to find about the middle. So I'm going to go to page 153. All right, perfect. So again, I'm just going to take a quick look. Looks like we have about halfway on both sides. You can see my nice glued binding looks great in there. And what I'm going to do is I am just going to stretch out my book before we get started so that I have a nice and flexible workspace. Now, I'm going to turn my book just like I did before, and we're going to start with a very similar fold. So this time, instead of taking our triangle fold and going right to the bottom of the book, we're actually going to go to just halfway on the page, so there's going to be about like an inch of space underneath. So what you can do is you can take a ruler, or you can, if you don't have a ruler on hand, you can go and slowly start to fold your shape until you get that triangle. And what we're looking for is when you reach your point at the top, you really want it to be nice and flush with both sides of the page at the bottom, and you can see I have about an inch worth of space. Again, if you're not comfortable eyeballing it, feel free to grab a ruler so that you can really get that nice and centered. And then what I'm going to do for all of my future pages is I'm just going to take a pencil and I am going to mark right where that point is and draw a little line all the way down to the end of my pages. Don't worry about seeing this. You won't see this in the final product. This is just a good reference page for you as we start to fold, just to make sure that you're always kind of lining up as we get further and further in the folded pages. So that's the first fold. The second fold that we're going to do is going to be a triangle off to the right hand side. So basically we're going to flip our next page up, and what I'm going to do is I am going to take this piece of paper on the left, being really gentle. Remember, you really want to be nice and easy with that edge, and you want to get it as close to the spine as you can. And I'm going to start like we did on the first book with a really nice triangle fold. I'm even going to go through with my nails and get that extra crisp. Now, instead of folding this all the way down to the bottom of the page, we're just going to finish the other side of this triangle right here. So again, take it easy, be really nice and gentle with this. Once you get that nice point lined up and you have these two edges flushed together for the page, you can crisp it up. And that's your second fold. We're going to alternate this, and I'm going to go back into my first fold again. So remember, I'm trying to get that nice point at the top of my page. Beautiful, and I'm going to go through and just crisp up those edges. Now, the next page, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same quarter page fold like we did for their second fold here, except on the other side. So go ahead and take that nice and easy on your edge. Make sure that you're gentle when you're starting this fold. Kind of work your fingers to the top. Go ahead and smooth and crisp that up, and then again we're just going to line it up and then crisp up the edge. So you can see what's going to happen is in between every one of these quarter folds, we're always going to go back to that center page fold, and then we're going to continue to alternate as we go from the left to the right side. So I'm going to do a couple more pages on this side, and then I'll flip the book around and we'll continue more on the other side. Awesome. So you can see, even with just a couple pages, if I let this fan out, what's happening is we're starting to see our shape come together, just like we did with the first book sculpture. This time we're going to have 3 different rows of those triangles to pop out, and it's going to create a really cool geometric effect once we're finished. Be patient with this one. You definitely need to fill up more of the book to really get those edges nice and tight together, but I promise you the finished effect is really, really wonderful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it around. Remember, it's really important to stay consistent with how crisp your pages are on the edges. You want to make sure that you're consistent with where you're folding it in the middle, so you get this really nice arch shape where all the pages meet, right? And you also want to make sure that the center you're really paying extra attention to. That's going to be the most challenging thing throughout this process, is really keeping that center page lined up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip back to my middle page, and you can see what I've done is I've taken this bottom line that we started with from the beginning, and I'm actually going to extend it on the very top. That way, when we continue to make pages and your book starts to get more full, you're no longer trying to just match the triangle shape where the one point is from before. You're actually kind of matching the line, which will make it easier once we get to the bottom half of the book where your pages are getting pretty thick in the middle. So remember, we're going to be folding it the opposite way. It's a good thing, it looks like the last page we did was a center fold, so what we're going to do next is we're going to see the second to last page that we did was one on the left, so that means that I have to create a triangle on the right next. So I'm going to fold up my page just like we did before. I want to be really easy with this little side edge on the bottom. I'm going to try and get really nice and close to my center of my book. And then this fold right here is pretty easy to stay consistent with because you're just working with the length of the page. But that's how we go from there. If it's helpful for you at all, I know sometimes if you're really looking to follow that center line, you could flip your book the other way so that every time you make a center fold, what you can do is you can tuck that page in, pull it down, and then you can really look right on this bottom edge for where you're going to make the crease. And there we go. So you can see now the next one that I'm going to go to, I'm going to keep flipping this way. So I need to do one on the opposite side. Just make sure that you remember which side that you're doing if you do flip it upside down to work this way. If you're more comfortable working in the same orientation that we did, totally up to you. The most important thing in this process is that we're just trying hard to stay consistent with your folds so that when we have that final product, you really get that wow geometric effect. Once you guys have finished all of your folds, you definitely need to do a big unveiling and have them displayed up on your wall as the part of the final product. I like to have mine in a collage form, kind of a salon style hanging, along with a bunch of other paintings and photos that I have. And you can see my books are kind of stacked on top of each other, back to back, so that it really creates a nice focal point when I'm finished. I love how the pages fan out. I love how the effect of both of these books turned out overall, and I hope you're proud of yourself for making something new today. Thank you guys so much for coming to join us for another Muse to Go video. We'll hope to see you again soon.